I'm Megan Campbell, 28, a plus-size fashion photographer in New York who never imagined my own sister would uninvite me from her Paris wedding. The email arrived just 3 weeks before the event, claiming I would distract from the bride's special day with my appearance. While Natalie enjoyed her luxury wedding to Richard with his old money connections, I sat alone in my hotel room, devastated by my own family's rejection. One tearful call to my best friend Amber changed everything. Before I dive into how my family broke my heart and how I turned it around, let me know where you're watching from and hit subscribe if you've ever felt judged for your appearance. Growing up in suburban Connecticut, I was always the different Campbell daughter. Our parents, Diana and Robert, set impossibly high standards, especially for physical appearance. Mom was a former beauty pageant contestant who never quite made it to Miss America, and Dad was a corporate executive who believed image was everything in building success. Our house was immaculate, our clothes always pressed, our hair always perfect for family photos. From an early age, it became clear that my younger sister Natalie naturally fit their mold. She was naturally slim, conventionally pretty, and excelled at everything she touched. Straight A's, cheerleading captain, prom queen. I, on the other hand, took after my grandmother on my father's side, curvier, with a rounder face and a completely different body type than my mother and sister. Megan, don't you want seconds of salad instead of pasta? Mom would ask at dinner, while simultaneously serving Natalie whatever she wanted. Natalie has such a naturally fast metabolism, she'd explain to dinner guests, as if my body was somehow broken in comparison. Dad was more subtle but equally damaging. Big career opportunities go to those who present themselves well, he'd say while looking me up and down. First impressions are everything in business. By my teen years, I'd internalized their message. My body was a problem to be fixed, a barrier to success, an embarrassment to the Campbell family image. When I gained the freshman 15 in college, coming home for Thanksgiving was excruciating. Mom immediately noticed. "Oh, honey, campus food isn't being kind to you, is it?" Meanwhile, Natalie was thriving at an Ivy League school, dating the son of one of Dad's business associates, and remaining a perfect size 4. The summer after sophomore year changed everything for me. I took a photography class as an elective, expecting an easy A. Instead, I found my passion. Looking through the lens, I controlled the narrative. I decided what was beautiful, what deserved attention, what stories needed telling. My professor, Iris, was a full-figured woman herself who photographed subjects society often overlooked. "The camera doesn't discriminate unless the person behind it does," she told me. I switched my major from business, Dad's choice, to fine arts with a concentration in photography, my choice. The family tensions escalated. "A hobby is one thing, but this isn't a real career path," Dad argued. Mom was gentler but equally dismissive. "It's just not practical, sweetie." After graduation, I moved to New York against my parents' wishes. I took out loans, lived with 3 roommates in a tiny apartment, and worked as a barista while building my portfolio. Those first 2 years were brutal, eating ramen, hustling for unpaid gigs, and facing constant rejection from galleries and studios. My breakthrough came when I created a series called Bodies of Work, photographing plus-size professionals in their elements. A surgeon in her operating room, a construction worker on her site, a CEO at her desk. The photos went viral on Instagram, and suddenly my follower count jumped from a few hundred to over 50,000. Companies started reaching out for body-positive campaigns. Magazines wanted interviews about my perspective on beauty standards. Meanwhile, Natalie followed our parents' perfect script. She graduated with honors, took a job at a prestigious financial firm, and began dating Richard Harrington, whose family had the kind of old money that made even our upper-middle-class parents seem nouveau riche by comparison. Richard was handsome, Harvard-educated, and moved in elite social circles. Natalie fit seamlessly into his world of charity galas, yacht parties, and ski trips to Gestad. Our relationship grew increasingly strained. When we spoke on the phone, Natalie would mention her promotions or exotic vacations, then ask about my little photography business with the kind of condescension that made my skin crawl. "Have you considered wedding photography? I know so many people getting married," she'd suggest. completely missing that my work had become about art and advocacy, not capturing cookie-cutter ceremonies. When Natalie called to announce her engagement, she seemed genuinely excited to share the news with me, despite our differences. Richard proposed at sunset on his family's private island. She gushed. The ring was his grandmother's. It's 5 carats and absolutely stunning. I congratulated her sincerely. Despite everything, she was my sister, and I wanted her to be happy. What surprised me was her immediate follow-up. I want you to be one of my bridesmaids, Meg. Really? I couldn't hide my shock. Of course, you're my sister. There was a pause. Mom will help you find an appropriate dress, something slimming. The wedding will be in Paris next spring. Richard's family has connections to rent out a historic chateau. I should have known there would be conditions to my inclusion, but I was so touched by the invitation that I overlooked the subtle dig. Over the following months, I saved every extra penny for the trip. Despite my growing success, Paris was expensive, and I refused to ask my parents for help. This was about supporting my sister, but it was also about showing my family that I'd made something of myself on my own terms. I found a gorgeous dress from a designer who specialized in plus-size fashion. Deep burgundy with delicate beading that complemented the spring wedding colors Natalie had chosen. It celebrated my curves rather than trying to hide them. For the first time in years, I felt beautiful in formal wear, confident enough to stand beside my runway-thin sister. Then, 3 weeks before the wedding, the email arrived. I was in my studio editing photos when my phone dinged with a message from Natalie. The subject line read, "About the wedding, important update." My heart dropped before I even opened it. Dear Megan, the email began with cold formality, as if we were business acquaintances rather than sisters who had shared a bathroom for 16 years. After careful consideration and consultation with our wedding planner and Richard's family, we've decided to make some adjustments to our guest list. While we value you as family, we feel your presence might be a distraction from the bride on this special day. The aesthetic we're going for is very specific, and we're concerned your appearance might clash with our vision. The wedding party photos need to have a cohesive look, and the Harringtons are very particular about their family imagery. I read it 3 times, each time feeling like I'd been slapped. The message continued. We've made arrangements to credit your flight, though unfortunately the hotel deposit is non-refundable. Perhaps you can still enjoy Paris another time. I'm sure you understand that this day is about Richard and me, and we need everything to be perfect. Mom agrees this is for the best. Love, Natalie. Love. After that paragraph of barely disguised body shaming, my hands shook so badly I dropped my phone. The studio suddenly felt too small, the air too thin. I canceled my afternoon client and drove home in a daze, tears blurring the traffic lights. Back in my apartment, I called my mother, hoping desperately that she would express outrage on my behalf. Tell me Natalie had gone too far. Assure me that families don't treat each other this way. Mom, did you know about this? My voice cracked as soon as she answered. There was a telling pause. Honey, try to understand. It's her special day, so special that her own sister can't be there because of how I look. Now, Megan, that's not exactly what she meant. It's just, these wedding photos will be in the family forever. Couldn't you have tried a little harder to lose weight for the occasion? I sent you the information about that cleanse program months ago. The betrayal burned in my chest. I'm not failing at existing in my body, Mom. I'm successful. My work is respected. I love who I am. Of course you do, dear, she said with the same tone she used when I was 7, and insisted I could be an astronaut despite my fear of heights. But sometimes we make sacrifices for the people we love. This wedding is important for our whole family's standing. The Harringtons move in very influential circles. After hanging up, I sat on my bathroom floor and sobbed until my throat was raw. Every childhood memory of not measuring up, every backhanded compliment, every helpful suggestion about diets or clothes or how to stand in photos to look slimmer, it all came rushing back like a toxic tidal wave. For 2 days, I barely left my bed. I canceled shoots, ignored emails, and lived on delivery pizza and ice cream. Partly because I couldn't summon the energy to cook, partly as a subconscious middle finger to 28 years of food policing from my family. On the 3rd morning, my best friend Amber let herself in with the spare key. She took one look at my unwashed hair, swollen eyes, and the fortress of takeout containers and went into crisis management mode. "I'm going to run you a bath," she announced, pulling open my blackout curtains. "Then we're going to talk strategy." "There is no strategy," I mumbled. "My own family is ashamed of me." "No," Amber said firmly. "Your family is shallow and cruel, and they don't deserve you. But you've got two choices here. Let them win, or show them exactly what they're missing." In the bath, surrounded by the lavender bubbles Amber had poured, something shifted inside me. The devastation began transforming into something harder, sharper, determination tinged with anger. When I emerged, Amber sat me down with coffee. "Your ticket to Paris is paid for. Your hotel is non-refundable. You know what I think you should do?" "What?" "Go anyway. And crash the wedding?" "That's not me, Amber." "Not crash the wedding. Ignore the wedding. Go to Paris for yourself. It's Paris, for God's sake. One of the most beautiful cities in the world. Take your camera. Create something gorgeous. Show them that you don't need their approval to shine." The idea took root as Amber spoke. I'd never been to Europe. Paris had been a dream destination since my first photography class. The city of light, with its art, architecture, and unparalleled beauty. "I'd still run into them," I said, but with less conviction. "We're staying at the same hotel, so change hotels or don't. If you see them, hold your head high. You've done nothing wrong. You've got just as much right to be in Paris as they do." That night, I called the hotel to change my reservation from the wedding block to a standard room. The receptionist with a French accent was surprisingly understanding. "We have a lovely room overlooking a quiet courtyard," she said. "Much more peaceful than the rooms near the ballroom where the wedding will be." I changed my return flight to a day earlier than planned. I didn't need to be in Paris while Natalie and Richard jetted off to their Maldives honeymoon. I packed and unpacked my suitcase 3 times, vacillating between wanting to look my absolute best if I ran into family and wanting to disappear completely. The night before my flight, I lay awake crying again. But these weren't just tears of hurt. They were tears of transition, of saying goodbye to the fantasy that my family might someday accept me fully as I was. By the time my alarm went off at 4 a.m. for my morning flight, my eyes were swollen, but my resolve was firm. Paris awaited, with or without my family's blessing. The 8-hour flight to Charles de Gaulle gave me too much time to think. I alternated between bursts of confidence in my decision and waves of anxiety about potentially facing my family in an international city where I knew no one. The middle-aged French woman beside me noticed my distress during a particularly shaky moment and patted my hand. "First time to Paris? Yes?" she asked with a kind smile. I nodded, not wanting to explain the whole sordid story. "Paris has a way of healing broken hearts," she said, somehow seeing right through me. "The beauty makes room for your pain, then slowly replaces it." Her words stayed with me as I navigated the airport, found a taxi, and gave the driver the address of Le Grand Hotel where the wedding party was staying. Despite everything, I couldn't afford to forfeit my prepaid reservation and book something else last minute. The hotel was more opulent than anywhere I'd ever stayed. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, staff in crisp uniforms who appeared instantaneously to assist with luggage. I felt underdressed and oversized in my travel clothes, hyper-aware of my body in a way I hadn't been in years. I'd worked so hard to overcome these insecurities, but family rejection had reactivated them all. As I approached the reception desk, my heart stopped. In the lavish lobby lounge sat a group of elegantly dressed women I recognized instantly as Richard's mother, his 2 aunts, and his sister, Madison, whom I'd met once at Natalie's engagement party. They were drinking champagne and hadn't noticed me yet. I ducked behind a large floral arrangement, my pulse racing. This was a mistake. I couldn't do this. I'd spend the entire trip hiding and panicking. "Mademoiselle, are you unwell?" A concerned voice came from behind me. I turned to find a middle-aged man in the hotel's uniform, looking at me with genuine concern. His name tag read, Francois, Concierge. "I'm fine," I whispered, "just hiding from some people." Rather than finding this strange, Francois nodded knowingly. "Ah, Paris is a city of romance. but also occasionally a city of awkward encounters. No? Perhaps you would prefer a more private check-in? Follow me to my desk. He led me to a discreet corner of the lobby, effectively shielding me from Richard's family. As he processed my room key, I found myself explaining a simplified version of my situation. My sister uninvited me from her wedding because of how I look, but I decided to come to Paris anyway because the trip was paid for. Instead of pity, Francois's expression showed indignation on my behalf. Quelle horreur! Such cruelty in families is unforgivable. He tapped on his computer with newfound purpose. I have moved you to our courtyard wing. Very private, very quiet, with a separate entrance, so you need not use the main lobby. And I have noted that your room should not be mentioned if anyone inquires. The kindness of this stranger brought fresh tears to my eyes. Thank you. Paris will be your healing place, Francois said, echoing the woman from the plane. You are a photographer, you said? Then you must not waste this opportunity. Paris offers herself to the camera like no other city. In my room, a lovely space with a small wrought iron balcony overlooking a fountain. I collapsed onto the bed, emotionally drained. The minibar beckoned, and I briefly considered drinking myself into oblivion. But instead, I opened my laptop and checked my email. Among the usual client messages was one from a French photographer named Emily Laurent. We'd connected through Instagram months ago when I'd admired her street photography of Parisian women of all sizes. I'd mentioned my upcoming trip, and she'd offered to meet for coffee. I had completely forgotten about this in the wedding drama. I impulsively wrote back, Dear Emily, I've just arrived in Paris under difficult circumstances. My plans have changed dramatically. I wonder if you might be available to meet sooner than we discussed. I find myself with an unexpectedly open schedule and a heart that needs healing through art. While waiting for a response, I unpacked my suitcase and came across the burgundy dress I'd bought for the wedding. I'd brought it partly because it was the most expensive item of clothing I'd ever purchased, and partly because some stubborn part of me still hoped for a miracle reconciliation where Natalie would apologize and welcome me back. I held the dress against myself in the mirror. It really was beautiful. The beadwork catching the light, the cut perfectly suited to my curves. An idea began forming in my mind, something equal parts empowering and terrifying. My phone pinged with Emily's response. My dear new American friend, Paris specializes in healing hearts through art. I am free tomorrow morning. What if we meet at Café de Flore at 9 a.m.? I have a proposal that might interest a photographer with an unexpectedly open schedule. I responded immediately. I'll be there. And I have a potentially crazy idea involving a formal dress and iconic Parisian backdrops. Her reply came seconds later. The crazier the better. This is Paris, after all. For the first time since receiving Natalie's email, I felt a flutter of excitement. I ordered room service instead of venturing into the hotel's restaurants, took a long bath in the enormous tub, and fell asleep planning shots in my head. Paris wouldn't be what I had expected, but maybe it could be something better. I fell asleep with a sense of purpose, though the wound of family rejection still throbbed beneath my newfound determination. Tomorrow would be the day of my sister's wedding, but it would also be the day I reclaimed my Paris story. I woke early on what should have been my sister's wedding day, a date that had been circled in my calendar for months. Outside my window, Paris was already alive with morning light, the courtyard fountain creating a soothing soundtrack. For a moment, I forgot everything and simply appreciated being in this beautiful city. Reality crashed back when my phone buzzed with a text from my cousin Jessica. Thinking of you today. This whole thing is so messed up. Wish you were here. I appreciated her support but didn't respond. Jessica was caught in the middle, a bridesmaid who disagreed with Natalie's decision but wasn't willing to bow out in protest. According to my original schedule, I would be getting my hair done with the bridal party right now. Instead, I decided to treat myself to the hotel's spa for a blowout before meeting Emily. If I was going to turn this trip around, I needed to look and feel my best. The spa was on the lower level, away from the main wedding venues, so I felt safe from encounters. I took the elevator down, wrapped in the plush hotel robe, mentally preparing for a few hours of pampering. As the elevator doors opened, my stomach dropped. Standing in the spa reception area was the entire bridal party. Natalie in a white silk robe, my mother beside her, and 5 bridesmaids including Jessica. They were drinking mimosas and laughing. their hair in various stages of styling. For a split second, I considered jabbing the door close button and retreating. But something stopped me. I had paid for this hotel. I had every right to be here. I straightened my shoulders and stepped forward. The conversation halted abruptly when they noticed me. Natalie's champagne glass froze halfway to her lips, her eyes widening in horror as if she'd seen a ghost. Megan? My mother recovered first, her voice a mixture of shock and annoyance. What are you doing here? I had non-refundable reservations, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I decided to enjoy Paris anyway. Natalie's face flushed crimson. You came to sabotage my wedding? After I specifically asked you not to attend? I'm not attending your wedding, Natalie. I'm having a spa day and then exploring Paris. The world doesn't revolve around you, even today. Two of the bridesmaids exchanged uncomfortable glances. Jessica gave me a subtle nod of support, while Natalie's college friend Tiffany Blake looked me up and down with naked disdain. This is unbelievable, Natalie hissed. Of all the hotels in Paris, I paid for this reservation months ago. I cut in. I'm not going to lose money because you decided your sister isn't aesthetically pleasing enough for your wedding photos. That's not what I said, Natalie's voice rose, causing a spa attendant to look over with concern. It's exactly what you said. You just used fancier words. My mother stepped between us, always the peacemaker when it suited her. Girls, please. This is hardly the time or place. I agree, I said. I'm just here for my appointment, not to cause trouble. You need to leave Paris, Natalie said flatly. I can't enjoy my wedding knowing you're here, lurking around, probably trying to ruin everything. That says more about you than it does about me, I replied, fighting to keep my voice from shaking. I'm staying through my original reservation. You won't even know I'm here. Megan, be reasonable, my mother pleaded. This is your sister's special day. If you truly love her, if I truly loved her, what about if she truly loved me? Would she have uninvited her own sister from her wedding because of how I look? The elevator doors opened again, and my father walked in. He stopped short at the tableau before him. His daughters squared off, his wife in the middle, the bridesmaids watching like it was a tennis match. What's going on? He asked, though his expression suggested he already knew. Dad, I acknowledged him with a nod, curious whether he would defend me this time. He sighed heavily. Megan, what are you doing here? Not how are you, or I've missed you. Just accusation. As if I were the one who had done something wrong, apparently ruining everything by existing, I said. The hurt must have been evident in my voice because his expression softened slightly. No one's saying that, he said, but without conviction. Actually, that's exactly what everyone's saying. I turned back to Natalie. Don't worry, I won't crash your perfect wedding. I won't come anywhere near your reception. I'm going to enjoy Paris my own way. And you can pretend I don't exist, just like you've been practicing for years. With that, I walked out, bypassing the spa entirely. My hands shook as I pressed the elevator button for my floor. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me cry. Back in my room, I texted Emily. Any chance we can meet earlier? I suddenly need to get out of my hotel as soon as possible. Her response was immediate. Mais oui, I'll be at Café de Flore in 30 minutes. Bring your camera and the dress. Today we make magic. I changed quickly, packed my camera equipment and the burgundy dress, and slipped out through the private entrance Francois had shown me. As I walked away from Le Grand, I felt both heartbroken and strangely liberated. My relationship with my family might be shattered beyond repair, but for the first time, I had stood my ground without apologizing for who I was. Paris awaited, indifferent to my family drama, eternal in its beauty. And somewhere in this magnificent city, a new friend was waiting to help me capture it all through my lens. Café de Flore was exactly as I'd imagined a classic Parisian café should be. Wicker chairs facing outward on the sidewalk, waiters in long white aprons, the smell of espresso and croissants mingling in the air. I spotted Emily immediately, though we'd never met in person. Her wild curly hair was pulled into a messy bun, and she wore a vintage camera around her neck. She waved enthusiastically when she saw me. Megan Campbell, she called, as if we were old friends. Welcome to Paris! She kissed me on both cheeks, European style, then held me at arm's length, You look like you've had quite a morning already. You have no idea, I said, sinking into the chair opposite her. Over coffee, I gave her the condensed version of my family drama and morning confrontation. Rather than offering pity, Emily's expression transformed from shock to determination. "So," she said, tapping her coffee spoon against the saucer decisively, "we have a mission today. We must create photos so magnificent that they make your sister's wedding pictures look like cheap tourist snapshots." Despite everything, I laughed. I don't know if revenge photography is really my style. Not revenge, Emily corrected. Redemption. Paris has been the backdrop for great art for centuries. Today, you will use your body, your talent, and your beautiful dress to create something meaningful. And yes, if it makes your family regret their cruelty, that is simply a bonus. Her confidence was infectious. We finished our coffee and set out, first stopping at Emily's apartment so I could change into my dress. Her tiny 6th-floor walk-up was a bohemian dream. Photographs covering every wall, vintage furniture, windows looking out over terracotta rooftops. I slipped into the burgundy gown, and Emily gasped, "Magnifique! This color against the Parisian landmarks? It will be stunning." For the next several hours, we traversed the city like artistic commandos. Emily knew all the perfect spots, the best angles, how to avoid crowds of tourists. We started at the Louvre. My burgundy dress a splash of rich color against the Renaissance architecture. Emily positioned me on the edge of a fountain, the glass pyramid in the background, the water catching the midday light. At first, I felt awkward posing in public, especially in such a formal dress. People stared. A few tourists took pictures of me taking pictures. "Ignore them," Emily advised. "In Paris, everything is art. You are simply part of the city's beauty today." Gradually, I relaxed into it. We moved to the Tuileries garden, where spring flowers provided a riot of colors to complement my dress. Then to Pont Alexander III, the most ornate bridge in Paris, with its gold statues and view of the Seine. "Look into the distance," Emily directed. "Yes, like that, as if you're seeing a future no one else can imagine yet." As the afternoon progressed, something shifted inside me. With each new location, each click of our cameras, I felt my confidence returning. This was my element, creating beauty, telling stories through images. Only this time, I was both the photographer and the subject, reclaiming my narrative frame by frame. "Now," Emily said as the afternoon light began to soften, "for the pièce de résistance, the Eiffel Tower at sunset." We arrived at Trocadero as the sky began its transformation, painting itself in pinks and golds. The Eiffel Tower stood in silhouette across the Seine, the most recognizable shape in the world. Emily had timed it perfectly. The tourist crowds were thinning as dinner called them to restaurants. Here, she positioned me on the wide steps. "The light will catch your dress like fire." I handed her my camera and stood where she indicated. For the first time all day, my sister's wedding crossed my mind. Right now, she would be saying her vows, declaring love and commitment in front of the family that had rejected me. A shadow of sadness passed over me. "I see that look," Emily called out. "Channel it. Art comes from truth, not pretense." I nodded, letting the genuine emotion surface rather than hiding it. The rejection, the hurt, but also the determination to create something meaningful from pain, I let it all show on my face as Emily circled me, capturing images from every angle. As we worked, a small crowd gathered to watch. I heard murmurs of appreciation in various languages. "Très belle," an elderly French woman commented. "Is this a movie?" An American tourist asked Emily. "No," she replied without looking away from her viewfinder. "This is real life. This is art." A young girl tugged at her mother's hand, pointing at me. "She looks like a princess, Mommy." The mother smiled at me. "You look beautiful," she called out in accented English. Something inside me broke open at her words. Not in a painful way, but like a dam releasing. After years of family criticism and recent rejection, here were strangers affirming what I'd fought so hard to believe about myself. Tears filled my eyes, catching the golden hour light. Emily didn't stop shooting. "Perfect," she whispered. "This is the moment. This is truth." As the sunset reached its peak intensity, bathing everything in amber light, a group of street musicians nearby began playing. The violin melody swirled around us, adding a soundtrack to our impromptu photo shoot. "Dance," Emily suggested. "Just a little. Feel the music." I twirled gently, the beating on my dress, catching the light, sending prisms across the stone steps. For a moment, I forgot everything. The wedding, the rejection, even the photo shoot itself. I was simply a woman in a beautiful dress in the most romantic city in the world, moving to music as the day turned to evening. The small crowd applauded. Someone tossed a rose that landed at my feet. I picked it up, laughing, and posed with it for one final shot as the Eiffel Tower's lights blinked on behind me. "I think we got it," Emily said finally, lowering the camera. She showed me a few shots on the viewfinder, and my breath caught. The woman in those images was radiant, powerful, fully present in her beauty and emotion. "That's me," I whispered in wonder. "Of course it's you," Emily replied. "It's always been you. Sometimes we just need the right light to see ourselves clearly." We packed up our gear as darkness fell completely. Emily checked her watch. "My friends are meeting for dinner in Montmartre. They would love to meet you. Photographers, painters, a few writers. Creative souls who understand the power of transformation through art." The idea of returning to my hotel, possibly encountering wedding guests, held no appeal. "I'd love that," I said. Over dinner, in a tiny restaurant with checkered tablecloths and candles in wine bottles, I connected with Emily's artistic community. They passed around our cameras, exclaiming over the images we'd captured. "These must be exhibited," declared Pascal, a gallery owner with wild gray hair. "They tell a powerful story." "What story is that?" I asked. He gestured expansively. "Rebirth, feminine power, beauty on one's own terms. The conversation between body, city, and light." His enthusiasm made everyone laugh, but I was touched by his serious analysis of our spontaneous project. "First," said Emily, "these go on Instagram. Tonight, the world should not wait for a gallery opening to see this transformation." We returned to her apartment, where she helped me select the perfect image. Me twirling at Trocadero, the Eiffel Tower glowing behind me, my dress catching the last golden light, my face in profile showing both vulnerability and strength. I posted it with a simple caption: "Uninvited from my sister's Paris wedding for not fitting the aesthetic. I found my own light instead. Number my Paris story." Then I turned off notifications, said goodnight to Emily, and returned to my hotel, slipping in through the private entrance. For the first time since receiving Natalie's email, I fell asleep without crying. My heart lighter despite the day's confrontation. Sometimes healing begins not when pain ends, but when you stop letting it control your story. I woke to my phone buzzing incessantly on the nightstand. Blinking away sleep, I checked the time, 7:15 a.m. My first thought was that something had happened at the wedding, and my family was trying to reach me despite our confrontation. Instead, I found my Instagram notifications exploding. The single photo I'd posted had thousands of likes already. Comments were pouring in so quickly I couldn't read them all. My follower count had jumped by several thousand overnight. Bewildered, I sat up in bed and tried to make sense of it. The photo had clearly resonated, but this level of response was unprecedented. I scrolled through the comments. "This is the most empowering thing I've seen all year. As a plus-size bride who was asked to minimize myself in wedding photos, this hits hard. Thank you for your courage. That dress was made for you. Their loss. The light, the composition, the story. This image is everything." Many comments tagged major fashion accounts, body positivity, influencers, and even a few celebrities. Several asked permission to share the image. Fashion magazines had left comments asking for interview rights. My phone rang. Emily's number. "Have you seen?" she asked without preamble when I answered. "I'm looking at it now." "What happened?" "Your photo was shared by Celeste Morgan." My heart skipped. Celeste Morgan was one of the biggest names in body positivity advocacy, with millions of followers and her own clothing line. She rarely shared content that wasn't her own. She shared it with a powerful caption about family acceptance, beauty standards, and resilience, Emily continued. Then 3 more major accounts picked it up. "It's going viral, Megan." I opened Celeste's page and found my photo with her caption. This is what courage looks like. Photographer at Megan Campbell Photo was uninvited from her own sister's Paris wedding for not fitting the aesthetic with her plus-size body. Instead of hiding away, she created this stunning image. May we all find this kind of strength when faced with rejection. Beauty comes in every size. The post had over 1 million likes already. "There's more," Emily said. Pascal called. "He's serious about the exhibition. He wants us to shoot more today. A complete series. And Fashion Forward magazine wants to interview you for a feature." I could hardly process what she was saying. Yesterday, I'd been devastated by family rejection. Today, my work and my story were reaching people around the world. "I need coffee before I can think about this," I managed. "Meet me at my apartment in an hour," Emily replied. "Bring the dress. We have work to do." After a quick shower, I checked my messages again. Amid the flood of notifications was a text from my cousin Jessica. "Your photo is everything. Half the bridesmaids are talking about it. Natalie is furious. Can we meet? I'm free after brunch." I hesitated, then agreed to meet her at a cafe near Emily's apartment. I was curious about the wedding's aftermath, though not enough to disrupt my suddenly overflowing day. When I arrived at Emily's, she had coffee waiting and her laptop open to a makeshift shot list for the day. "We need to move quickly while the momentum is building," she said. "Pascal wants the exhibition to open next week, while you're still in Paris." "That's incredibly fast for a gallery show," I said, stunned. Emily shrugged. "He says when the moment is right, you don't wait. Also, 3 magazines want to cover the opening. This is becoming something bigger than just photographs, Megan. You're starting a conversation." We spent the morning shooting at new locations: the colorful Rue Cremieux, the hidden square du Vert Galant at the tip of Ile de la Cité, and the dramatic steps of Sacré-Cœur. Each location brought new confidence to my poses, as if the viral response had physically transformed me overnight. At noon, I met Jessica at the cafe while Emily transferred our morning's work to her computer. My cousin rushed in, still wearing her bridesmaid dress from the morning brunch. "I can't believe I'm finally seeing you," she said, hugging me tightly. "That photo, Meg. It's incredible." "Thanks," I said, genuinely touched by her enthusiasm. "How was the wedding?" Jessica hesitated. "Beautiful, of course. But there was this undercurrent. People were talking about you, especially after your photo started going viral. Some of Richard's relatives saw it. His sister Madison actually showed it to everyone at the after-party." "Madison? Really?" I remembered meeting her briefly at the engagement party. Tall, reserved, seemingly every bit as polished as the rest of the Harrington clan. Jessica nodded. "She was disgusted by how they treated you. Apparently, she had a sister who struggled with eating disorders because of family pressure about appearance. She said excluding you was everything wrong with society's beauty standards." I didn't know how to feel about becoming the scandal of my sister's wedding. Part of me felt vindicated, but another part felt sad that it had come to this. "Natalie noticed people talking," Jessica continued. "When she saw the photo, she completely lost it. Started saying you planned this to sabotage her wedding. Your mom had to take her aside to calm her down." "That's ridiculous," I said. "I didn't even know it would go viral." "Some people are projecting their own guilt," Jessica observed with surprising insight. "Anyway, I wanted you to know that not everyone agrees with how they treated you, and I wanted to see you before I fly home tomorrow." After Jessica left, I returned to Emily's, where the situation had escalated further. My photo had been shared by several major news outlets. My follower count had surpassed 100,000. Fashion Forward wanted the interview immediately, over video call. "This is crazy," I said as Emily helped me prepare for the call. "Yesterday I was heartbroken about being excluded. Today I'm talking to magazines." "That's the power of authentic storytelling," Emily replied. "People recognize truth when they see it." The interview with Fashion Forward focused on body positivity, family acceptance, and using art as resilience. I spoke candidly about my experiences, careful not to name my sister or her new husband specifically. "The photo wasn't about revenge," I explained to the interviewer. "It was about reclaiming my narrative, about finding beauty on my own terms." By evening, more requests were pouring in. A body-positive clothing brand wanted to discuss a collaboration. 3 podcasts requested interviews. A book agent inquired about a potential memoir. And most surprisingly, a message from Madison Harrington appeared in my Instagram DMs. I don't know if you remember me. I'm Richard's sister. I want you to know I think how you were treated was appalling. Your photo is stunning and powerful. If you're still in Paris and would be willing to meet, I'd love to buy you coffee. I showed Emily, who raised her eyebrows. The plot thickens, she said with a smile. Are you going to meet her? I think so, I replied, surprised by my own answer. I'm curious about her perspective. I arranged to meet Madison the following morning at a quiet cafe away from the wedding venues. Then I returned to my hotel, exhausted but exhilarated by the day's events. In my room, I found a note had been slipped under my door. I recognized my father's handwriting immediately. Megan, saw your photo online. Very professional work. Are you okay? Dad, not an apology. Not even close. But the first time he had acknowledged my photography as legitimate work, and the first time he had asked about my well-being since this whole debacle began. I didn't know if this represented a genuine shift or simply concern about public appearances now that my story was spreading. Either way, I wasn't ready to respond. I placed the note on the nightstand and began preparing for another whirlwind day. As I fell asleep, my phone continued buzzing with notifications. The counter on the viral photo had surpassed 4 million views. My private pain had somehow transformed into a public conversation about acceptance, beauty, and resilience. The irony wasn't lost on me. Being excluded from my sister's wedding had given me a larger platform than I'd ever had before. Pain had become purpose in ways I never could have imagined when I boarded that flight to Paris. Returning to New York felt like stepping into someone else's life. In the week since my Eiffel Tower photo had gone viral, everything had changed. My small but growing photography business had exploded with booking requests. My social media accounts had gained hundreds of thousands of followers. My inbox overflowed with collaboration offers, speaking invitations, and media requests. I hadn't managed to find temporary help before leaving Paris, so my first day back was spent frantically trying to organize the chaos. By evening, I'd set up an autoresponder, created a priority system for reviewing opportunities, and begun searching for an assistant. 3 days later, I interviewed and hired Zoe, a recent Parsons graduate with event planning experience and a passion for body positivity advocacy. She arrived at my studio the following morning with color-coded folders and a detailed plan for managing the influx of attention. These are the 5 magazine interviews I think you should prioritize, she explained, pointing to a spreadsheet. And these brands align best with your message and aesthetic for potential collaborations. This is incredible, Zoe, I said, genuinely impressed. I had no idea how to handle all this. She smiled. That's why you have me now. Oh, and there's one more thing. Madison Harrington called the studio line. She's in New York and wants to meet. Madison and I had connected briefly in Paris the day after her brother's wedding. Our coffee had been surprisingly cordial. She'd apologized for her family's role in my exclusion and shared stories about her own sister's struggles with body image. I hadn't expected to hear from her again, especially not in New York. Did she say what it's about? I asked. Just that she's here for a few days and hope to continue your conversation from Paris. Curiosity got the better of me. I agreed to meet Madison for lunch the next day at a quiet restaurant in the West Village. When I arrived, I spotted her immediately. Tall, elegant, with the same confident bearing as her brother, but a warmth in her eyes that I hadn't noticed during our brief interaction at Natalie's engagement party. Megan, she greeted me with a genuine smile. Thank you for meeting me. I wasn't sure you would. Honestly, I wasn't sure either, I admitted as we sat down. Madison didn't waste time on small talk. I've been following your story since Paris. What's happening with your work is extraordinary. It's been overwhelming, I admitted. But in a good way. Mostly. I can imagine. She hesitated. I wanted to see you because I've been thinking a lot about families, appearances, and the damage we do to each other. She explained that her own sister, younger by 4 years, had developed severe anorexia in high school, largely due to their mother's constant criticism and the family's obsession with maintaining a certain image. Caroline nearly died, Madison said quietly. She spent her junior year in treatment instead of school. And even after that, our mother still made comments about her watching her figure at family dinners. I was struck by the parallel to my own experience, though with a much more serious outcome. "I'm so sorry," I said. "Is she okay now?" "She's better. Living in Seattle, working as an environmental scientist, limited contact with our parents." Madison twirled her water glass. "When I saw how Richard's family and yours treated you about the wedding, it brought everything back. The way beauty standards become weapons within families." I nodded, understanding exactly what she meant. It's like being told your appearance is more important than your presence, that how you look matters more than who you are. "Yes," Madison agreed emphatically. "And the worst part is, Natalie knows better. She was there during Caroline's worst times. She saw what our family's obsession with appearance did to my sister." This new information shifted my perspective slightly. I'd been thinking of Natalie as the villain in my story, but perhaps she was both perpetrator and victim, continuing a cycle of toxic beauty standards she'd witnessed in Richard's family. Has Natalie said anything about everything that's happened? I couldn't help asking. Madison grimaced. "They're still on their honeymoon, but according to my mother, she's furious about your publicity stunt overshadowing her wedding. She doesn't see that she created this situation by excluding you in the first place." We talked for nearly 2 hours, sharing stories about our respective families and the complicated dynamics around appearance, acceptance, and conditional love. As we said goodbye, Madison surprised me with a hug. "I know it's strange, considering everything, but I'm glad we're connected now," she said. "What you're doing is important." Back at my studio, Zoe had scheduled a video meeting with the editor of Body Image Now magazine, who wanted me to shoot and write a feature on finding confidence after rejection. As I outlined my ideas, I found myself incorporating insights from my conversation with Madison, how beauty standards are often weaponized within families, particularly against women, and how breaking that cycle requires both personal resilience and public conversation. The editor loved it. "This is exactly the kind of nuanced perspective we need," she said. "When can you deliver the completed piece?" My schedule was filling rapidly. In addition to the magazine feature, I'd agreed to speak at a body positivity conference in Chicago, collaborate with an inclusive clothing brand on their fall campaign, and develop a photography workshop for plus-size women who avoided being in pictures. Meanwhile, my parents had begun reaching out more consistently, their tone noticeably different. My father had sent an email praising the professional quality of my recent work. My mother had left a voicemail saying she was proud of my success and hoping we could talk soon. I wasn't ready. Their sudden interest felt tied to my public recognition rather than genuine reconciliation. Zoe helped me craft polite but non-committal responses, establishing boundaries while keeping doors open for future healing. Natalie was another matter entirely. 3 weeks after returning from her honeymoon, she sent an email with the subject line, "We should talk." The body contained only 2 sentences. "I think there's been some misunderstanding about what happened with the wedding. I never meant to hurt you." It wasn't an apology. It wasn't even an acknowledgement of the pain she'd caused. It was a minimization, an attempt to rewrite history now that the public narrative had turned against her. According to Madison, Natalie's social media accounts had been flooded with negative comments about her treatment of me. Some wedding guests had even posted public messages of support for me, creating awkward tensions in her new social circles. I let the email sit unanswered for days, unsure how to respond or whether to respond at all. My therapist, whom I'd started seeing weekly to process everything, advised me to consider what I wanted from the relationship going forward before deciding. "Your sister's actions were hurtful," she said during our session. "But the question now is whether there's a relationship worth salvaging there, and what that would require from both of you." I wasn't sure. The wounds felt too fresh, the hurt too deep, and yet beneath the pain was 30 years of shared history, not all of it bad. Childhood games, teenage secrets, inside jokes no one else understood. While I deliberated, my career continued its meteoric rise. The Paris exhibition with Emily had garnered international press. Our photos, me in the burgundy dress against iconic Parisian backdrops, each image capturing a different emotional state from devastation to triumph, had resonated with viewers around the world. 3 galleries in New York had reached out about hosting the exhibition next. Zoe had established a foundation in my name, offering photography scholarships to plus-size artists. The first fundraiser, a virtual event featuring several celebrities who'd embraced the body positivity movement, raised enough to fund 5 full scholarships. 6 months after the Paris wedding, I found myself on the cover of a major magazine, wearing a designer gown created specifically for my measurements, the headline reading, "Meghan Campbell, Turning Rejection into Revolution." The accompanying interview delved deep into family dynamics, beauty standards, and the power of visual representation. I spoke candidly about my experiences while being careful not to vilify my family entirely. This wasn't about revenge. It was about starting necessary conversations. The photo that went viral wasn't planned as a statement, I explained to the interviewer. It was a moment of reclaiming joy during a painful time. But its resonance showed how many people have experienced similar rejection based on appearance, and how ready they are for a different story. The day the magazine hit newsstands, I received a text from Natalie. "You look beautiful on the cover." It was the first genuine compliment she'd given me in years. Perhaps it was a small opening, a tiny crack in the wall between us. I wasn't ready to walk through it yet, but I could acknowledge its existence. I texted back simply, "Thank you." Some journeys toward healing begin with the smallest of steps. 6 months after the Paris wedding that I never attended, my life had transformed in ways I never could have imagined. My photography business had evolved from a modest studio operation to a thriving company with 3 employees. The viral Eiffel Tower image had opened doors I hadn't even known existed, leading to exhibitions in 4 cities, a book deal for a photo essay collection, and speaking engagements across the country. But the most significant changes weren't professional. They were personal. The painful rejection that had once felt like the end of my world had become the catalyst for profound growth. With my therapist's guidance, I'd begun the difficult work of processing family trauma, setting healthy boundaries, and building self-worth that didn't depend on others' approval. My parents had made tentative efforts at reconciliation, beginning with congratulatory messages about my professional success, then gradually acknowledging the hurt they'd caused through years of subtle and not-so-subtle body shaming. "We didn't realize what we were doing," my mother said during a careful lunch meeting, our first face-to-face conversation since Paris. "We thought we were helping you fit into a world that can be cruel about appearance." "By being cruel first?" I asked. Not unkindly. She flinched but nodded. "We were wrong. I see that now." My father, less verbally expressive, had shown his attempt at understanding by subscribing to my professional newsletter and attending my New York exhibition opening, standing quietly in the corner, studying each image with genuine attention. These weren't complete resolutions. Decades of damage couldn't be undone in a few months. But they were beginnings, fragile shoots of possibility emerging from scorched earth. Natalie proved the most complicated relationship to navigate. After her initial text about the magazine cover, we'd exchanged sporadic messages, surface level at first, then gradually more substantive. 3 weeks ago, she'd asked if we could meet. "I owe you a real apology," she wrote. Not an email, not a text. Face to face. We agreed to meet at a neutral location, a quiet cafe halfway between her Upper East Side apartment and my Brooklyn studio. When I arrived, she was already there, looking simultaneously like the polished sister I'd always known and somehow different, less certain perhaps of her place in the world. "Thank you for coming," she began. "I'm still not sure why I did," I admitted. She nodded, accepting this. "I've been working with a therapist too," she said, "trying to understand why I did what I did, why I hurt the person who's known me longer than anyone else." What followed wasn't a perfect apology. It included some deflection, some minimization, but it also contained genuine remorse and, more surprisingly, self-awareness. "I've always been jealous of you," she confessed, shocking me into silence. "Your confidence, your creativity, your ability to forge your own path instead of following the one laid out for you. Excluding you from the wedding wasn't really about aesthetics. It was about my insecurity. Standing next to you, I felt less special. That's not how I saw our relationship at all," I said when I found my voice. "I always thought you had everything. The perfect body, our parents' approval, the textbook success." We both sat with this revelation. How completely we had misunderstood each other's experience, each envying something in the other that we hadn't recognized in ourselves. This didn't instantly heal the rift between us. One conversation couldn't erase the wedding exclusion or the years of complicated family dynamics that had preceded it, but it created a possibility that hadn't existed before, of a relationship based on authentic understanding rather than competition and judgment. As I built this fragile new foundation with my biological family, I also continued nurturing the chosen family that had emerged from the Paris experience. Emily visited New York for our joint exhibition, staying in my guest room for 2 weeks. Zoe had become not just an employee, but a friend and confidant. Madison Harrington, surprisingly, had become a regular presence in my life, our shared understanding of toxic family dynamics creating a unique bond. And most importantly, I'd developed a new relationship with myself, one based on appreciation rather than criticism, on valuing my worth beyond physical appearance. The Body Positivity Scholarship Program had become my passion project, supporting photographers who were creating work that challenged conventional beauty standards. The first cohort of scholarship recipients was currently exhibiting their work in my studio gallery, powerful images that continued the conversation my Eiffel Tower photo had started. Standing in the gallery on opening night, surrounded by photographs that might never have existed without that painful wedding exclusion, I felt a sense of purpose that transcended personal vindication. What had begun as individual hurt had blossomed into collective healing, creating space for more people to see themselves as worthy of being seen. My journey wasn't about proving my family wrong or gaining revenge through success. It was about transforming pain into purpose, rejection into connection, shame into celebration. We all face moments that threaten to break us, betrayals by those we love, rejections that strike at our deepest insecurities, losses that seem insurmountable. The question isn't whether these moments will occur, but what we build from their aftermath. Sometimes the most beautiful creations emerge from the deepest wounds, not despite our pain, but because of how it reshapes our vision. My Paris story began with an email that broke my heart, but it continued with a photograph that helped me reclaim it, not just for myself, but for anyone who has ever been told they take up too much space in the world. What painful rejection have you transformed into something beautiful? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below.